guys, welcome to or back to my channel. My name is Hannah. Here I read mostly romance, fantasy, historical fiction, though I am starting to branch out a little. Praise be. Is that like a Handmaid's Tale thing? I've been watching Handmaid's Tale, so not praise be, but anyways, I'm happy to say that I am reading more out of my comfort zone. And today we are going to do my March TBR. Now, I am very happy to say that I had a little bit more success with February's TBR than I did with January's. We're up 2 from 0. A win is a win. We're gonna pick another 6. I like filming these. Many people enjoy watching them. Not necessarily me, but just TBRs in general. So here we are. All right, first prompt, hopes for this. Oh, never mind. The prompt chose me. Okay, what's this one? Because this one flew out. Perfect. It's what I've been dreaming for the last 2 months, what I've been asking for that I never received. And I don't know if you can see it because this is like the tiniest slip of paper that I could have possibly cut out. It's a nonfic. I'm really happy to have a nonfiction. I have been reading nonfiction regardless of whether it's a prompt or not, but I'm glad that it's a prompt so that now it's easier to fulfill on my TBR. I already have the perfect book. And that is going to be Femina by Janina Ramirez, A New History of the Middle Ages Through the Women Written Out of It. I love Middle Ages history. I love women. It's Women's History Month in March. It's perfect. It says on the back that Femina reveals the power and influence of medieval women who have been written out of our history, from royalty and religion to fame and fury. See the medieval world and the women erased from it with fresh eyes. I am so excited. It definitely seems very like academic, so I'm gonna be picking through this throughout the month. Yes, okay, Femina by Janina Ramirez. Since that one kind of fell out, I didn't get to say what I was kind of hoping for. What I'm hoping for is maybe the start to a series. I've spent the last month kind of like palate cleansing, and now I'm ready to be emotionally destroyed again. So I'm kind of hoping for a series, and I'm kind of hoping for a horror or a science fiction. The palette is wide. We're working with a lot of cravings, desires. No, that sounds weird too. I have a lot of options. There's a lot that I want to read in my heart. Okay, that's the best way that I can say that. Anyways, second prompt. All right. Okay, this one's a long one. Okay. Oh, this is perfect. This is literally perfect. I could not, again, like the TBR is favoring me today. It is a book that is out of my comfort zone. Let me grab some options. We do have a few. Okay, so I've got some options here. As usual, I picked 3 just to keep it short, keep it sweet. Let's go through them. First up, I have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. We've talked about this one before on this channel. Or maybe I haven't. Did I? If I haven't, this is a kind of, I guess, a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, something I've never read, never really heard anything about, and yet here we are. This is a horror. It's a novella. It's quite short, so that definitely has it going for it. And I just read The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, which is another horror, and I loved it. So I'm kind of leaning towards this one just kind of automatically based on its length and its content. Next, I have The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. We had this on the TBR in January. We did. I didn't read it. I didn't even really feel the desire to pick it up. I do kind of want like a mystery thriller. Like I'm kind of a little bit in the mood for it. It's not a genre I go to often, hence why it is been picked for this prompt. I guess this is kind of about a woman who shoots her husband in the face and then never speaks a word, and we're following this criminal psychotherapist as he's trying to like get her to talk about it and figure out, like, unravel the mystery. And then finally we have an option that I just acquired. This is a recent acquisition to my bookshelf, and that is All Systems Red, the first novella in the Murderbot series, or the Murderbot Diaries, sorry, by Martha Wells. I've heard so many amazing things about this series. From my understanding, this book is about a robot who has social anxiety and also doesn't like people, which, you know, those two things go together. It's kind of forced into situations where it has to interact with humans and come to know them. It almost feels akin to like a kind of Doctor Who situation. I could be very far off, but it kind of feels like that. Again, it is short. It's short. She's short. She's sweet. She's in sci-fi, which I really have not read pretty much anything in that genre, so this would definitely fit the prompt. However, I think I'm gonna go with What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Not only is this a new author that I've been really wanting to try, it's also really short. It's in a genre that I've just kind of like dipped a toe in and really enjoyed, so it's another foray into the genre for me. I also feel like because it is short, it will be easier to tick off my TBR. Like, I won't be so intimidated by it. It'll give me some more like breathing room for mood reading, which I feel like I'm gonna need. So What Moves the Dead, I think, is going to be our next addition to the March TBR. All right, we've started off really strong. I'm hoping that we can continue it. Like, the TBR is definitely favoring me this month. Okay. Okay, I'm not like a huge fan of this one, but you know, here we are. This is a book with an animal on the cover. Okay, why did I do this to myself? What? I'll come back with some options. Okay, there must be some. Okay, clearly we have options. Clearly I found some. It wasn't necessarily the easiest find, but I feel like we do have a good spread here. First up in our 3 options, I have When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is a romantasy that was like blowing up on TikTok and BookTube. She's chunky. She's chunky. She's a big girl, and the font is small. I have heard very mixed things about this. I don't even really know what this is about, to be quite frank. I haven't really heard anyone explain it, like the plot, in a way that I can understand. And from what I've heard, this is in some ways kind of confusing at first. I just know it's a romantasy. I love the cover. And you know, to be honest, it has been sitting on my TBR for a while. The next option I have is kind of a recent acquisition to the TBR, and that is Babylonia by Costanza Casati. She wrote Clytemnestra. If you've read that, that's kind of going around. It's very popular. I've heard really good things. I really want to read that as well. But this is her second book, and it is set in ancient Babylon. It's a mix between mythology and historical fiction, so that's interesting. Clearly we have an animal here on the cover, so that's why it's here. I'm not really in the mood for this. I don't think so. I don't think that I'm gonna pick that one. And then finally, we have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is obviously the prequel to The Hunger Games. The movie came out like 2 years ago. We've heard of it. I've heard amazing things about it, and because Sunrise on the Reaping is coming out this month, I feel like this would be an apt choice. Obviously, we have a songbird on the cover, so that is the animal. So I think, honestly, it's between When the Moon Hatched and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Personally, I'm kind of more in the mood right now for When the Moon Hatched. I know that's contradicting everything that I said and felt, and the fact that I've heard mixed things, and the fact that it's a chunker, and I don't really want to commit to a chunker that I am worried is going to be mixed. I don't know. I just kind of want to read it. However, this would be the appropriate choice. Like, this would be the better choice. This would be looking out for my future self. Immediate Desire? Future self. Immediate Desire, future self. We're gonna go with future self. I feel like I will appreciate myself more for reading this book this month than I will for reading When the Moon Hatched. All right, guys, we're 3 down, 3 to go. We're going strong. I feel like that one was a little bit of a tough one, but like, hopefully, I'm sure I'll get to it. I'm sure I'll be in the mood for that. Anyways, okay, this is upside down. Next prompt. Okay. This is a book with no romance. Okay. All right. That's a tough one. I read a lot of romance, and if I don't read specifically romance, a lot of the books that I do read include romance in some ways. I feel like a lot of books do include in some ways some romance, even if they're not explicitly about romance. So I think that's going to be the struggle. Let me grab some options, however. All right, we've got 3 options. This one was really tough. This one, I thought the animal one was tough. No, girl. This was tough. I don't actually know for sure if any of these have absolutely no romance. I just suspect that they wouldn't based on their genre and what I've read of the synopsis. So I'm doing my best here. Okay, I'm doing my best. First up, again, this needs no explanation. We talked about it earlier. We have All Systems Red, the first book in the Murderbot Diaries. I just don't think this is gonna have romance. I think this is not necessarily that type of book. And I did want to read it. It would fulfill a science fiction craving for me, but I did not choose it earlier. So, you know. And then next up, I have a historical fiction. I have A True Account, Hannah Mazuri's Sojourn Amongst the Pirates, written by herself. I can't read that. I can't read that. Anyways, this is a pirate book. I think it's set in two eras. So we are set in the golden age of piracy, and then we switch to a professor in 1930. The 1930s professor is reading about this woman in the golden age of piracy and like picking through her life academically. It kind of seems like that's what this is. It's relatively short. I don't think this will have romance. I don't think it's like a romantic plot. However, it could. If Miss Girl doing her pirating falls in love with somebody and has kids and all that, that could be considered romance. So that's where we're kind of towing the line here. And then finally, I have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley and really enjoyed it. So I kind of bought most of her backlist, and this definitely isn't gonna have romance. This is a murder mystery, I believe. I don't know. I'm not really in the mood to read it now. None of these I'm really in the mood for, except for maybe Murderbot. You know what? Yeah. You know what? Hell yeah. We're gonna go with the Murderbot. With the Murderbot? We're gonna go with All Systems Red, the first book in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. It's short, it's sweet, it scratches an itch, and I don't think it's going to have romance, so I think it'll fit this prompt pretty well. Hopefully. I did my best. All right, the TBR was kind to me, and then it's been not so kind. So I'm hoping for some mercy, some kindness again. All right, let's do this. All right, 5th prompt, second to last. Goodness gracious. Okay, this is so long. Okay, a book set in a country I've never read about. Fair. Let me grab options. All right, I'm back. Some more exciting options for this particular prompt. The first book that I have for consideration for this prompt is The Daughters of Shandong by E.J. Chung. This is set in the 1940s in a rural Chinese province, and it's kind of like a family saga set up over, I believe, a few generations, or maybe just one generation, just like over the span of their lives. I'm not always the biggest fan of like family saga stories if they're not like in fantasy context, so I'd be interested to see what I feel about this one. And then my second option is The Nightingale's Castle by Sonia Velton. This is a historical fiction / mythology story set in the Carpathian Mountains, so think Dracula. And it follows a teenage noblewoman who gives birth to an illegitimate daughter, and that daughter is sent away. Years later, she returns as like a maid. The countess that runs the castle where this illegitimate daughter, now grown up, is coming back to serve. The countess that runs that castle has a very bloodthirsty, scary reputation, and I guess this book is kind of trying to figure out whether or not that is the real reputation. She has a historical reputation when we look back now of being that way, but was she actually that way? That's what this book kind of explores. This kind of feels like more of a Halloween read, so I think we're gonna like And then my last book that I have for this prompt is Against the Loveless World by Susan Abulhawa. This is a book set in Palestine. I believe it's a historical fiction set in Palestine about a woman who is initially in an Israeli solitary confinement cell. She's sharing her life story from this Israeli solitary confinement cell, and it's kind of about her story of getting back to Palestine. It seems like that's what it kind of says on the back. This would be a very apt book to read right now, considering the state of things. I think definitely the choices that I'm like really definitely considering are Against the Loveless World and The Daughters of Shandong. I think I'm gonna go with Against the Loveless World by Susan Abulhawa. This is, I just think, apt for right now. So it just has to be chosen. All right, guys, we're on our last prompt. I don't know what I'm hoping for. I don't really have any hopes. I'm kind of just like rocking and rolling. I'm excited about some of these books on the TBR, and I'm less excited about others, and it is what it is. Maybe the tactic that I had just worked for me last month. We'll see. Okay. So this prompt is, a book by a new author. So there should be a lot of options for this. Let me grab them. I've got 3 options. Clearly you can see that I have tabbed some of this. I started this book and then I soft DNF'd it. So I'm going to count it because technically I feel like I haven't read and completed a book by this author, but it's kind of cheating. This is my TBR video. I can do what I want. So we're gonna include it. It's fine with me. So first up, we have The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is an epic fantasy following Norse mythology, or based on Norse mythology, I believe. I've read about 200 pages of it. and I was really enjoying it. I think the way that I was tabbing it kind of pulled me out of the story a little bit, and so I wasn't getting as connected as I could have been, or reading it as fast as I could have. I also think that when I read it, I was really insecure about my ability to read fantasy, epic fantasy specifically, so it didn't work at the time. I feel like it could work now. I've also heard amazing things about John Gwynne's work. Who hasn't heard amazing things about John Gwynne's work? So I'd love to give it a try. And then I have got a YA, which is odd for me. I don't really read a ton of YA, or like I do, but I haven't had the best luck with it lately. So, you know, here we are. Anyways, I have The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. I actually have I also started this one and I was tabbing it and it took me out of the story. So clearly tabbing the way that I was tabbing was not working for me. I have since changed. I've heard really good things about this series from a multitude of people across the bookish spectrum, so I would be really interested to see how I felt about this. And then finally, I have Don't Let the Forest In by C.J. Drews. This is a horror. This is a YA horror. This is what the back says. Thomas had no idea that Andrew would do anything for him, protect him, lie for him, kill for him. I think my reservation with this one specifically is that I already have some horror on the list, and I feel like I want to keep this for like later in the year, fall time. It's very much spring, and so this is maybe perhaps not what I am going to be in the mood for this month. So really the options are between The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni and The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Between these two, I think I'm gonna go with The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I'm ready to have my heart ripped out again. The Day of About trilogy ripped my heart out, and it was very similar in terms of its length and being an epic fantasy. I don't know, I feel like epic fantasy sometimes allows you to dive deeper into the characters, or it just naturally does that. I really want that. I really want to feel for characters that are complicated and messy and not necessarily good. And I feel like oftentimes YA fantasy, you tend to have a lot of characters that are just, they're either good or they're bad, and if they're not good to start with, they will end up being good and all kind of feeling the same. Not to say that those tropes are bad, I just am not in the mood for it. Anyways, we're gonna go with The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, the final pick on the TBR. All right, guys, we officially have our March TBR. I am feeling kind of mixed about this. There's a couple of books that I really want to read, and there's a couple of books where I'm like, I feel like I will want to read them throughout the month, but I'm not necessarily excited about them now in this moment. As always, I'm aiming for at least half. Let's go over them very, very quickly just to recap. I have Femina by Janina Ramirez. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. All Systems Red, the first novella in the Murderbot Diary series by Martha Wells. Against the Loveless World by Susan Abuhawa. And finally, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Next week, we're going to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of February, and we actually have a lot to talk about. I've gotten through a lot more than what I expected to. So highs and lows, we're going to talk about all of them. So without further ado, I will sign off. I'll shut the fuck up, and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching.